Perez.
I'm Abigail Muller.
And I'm Kayla Kwan.
And this is Have a Conversation, Chapter 3.
When you find yourself in a conversation with a stranger, you might sometimes feel stuck. What should you say and how should you say it? It's hard to feel natural, and that makes having these conversations very difficult. You might be thinking about what your hands or your face should be doing. These feelings of uncertainty and awkwardness can be amplified when you find yourself speaking to multiple people at a time, especially if there are dim lights and everyone has their eyes on you.
Our first assignment in this class was to do a small presentation on a hobby or skill that we had. And when I first heard that, I automatically started overthinking and overanalyzing all my choices. I was scared, I didn't want to sound dumb or embarrass myself. And so when the time finally came for me to present, I spoke too fast and I avoided eye contact. And that was because I was nervous. And that's why having a conversation is important.
So the purpose of our presentation is learning how to perfect your presentations through conversations, which leads to better performance and more authenticity with your presentation.
So first, we're going to go over what is called the 3 Ps of passion, practice, and presence. We're going to take a look at an example of Amanda Palmer in action. Next, we're going to take a look at the 4 elements of verbal delivery, specifically pace, or also known as rate. We'll delve deeper into this topic by viewing examples of people, including Tony Robbins and Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor. Next, we'll take a look at positive body language and negative body language, as well as solutions to those negative body language problems. We'll wrap up with a Q&A, which you might want to pay attention to because we may or may not have a special treat for those who answer correctly. And then we'll end with something further to think about.
The first main point we'll be going over is the 3 Ps, passion, practice, and presence. How much does the topic matter to you? If you don't care or if it means nothing to you, then it weakens your presentation. And if you only memorize certain bits and parts, then it creates a barrier of learning between you and your audience. How long do you have to practice to be perfect? 10,000 hours are required to perfect any skill, although that is a lot of hours, which is why practicing every chance you get is so important. And lastly, how do these things affect your presence? Once you've mastered your passion and you're confident enough because you've practiced, then and only then can you start to work on your presence, how you look and act towards the audience. There's a great quote in Talk Like TED, and it's on page 80, and it says, "The first step requires the person to identify what she is passionate about and how it connects to her message. The next step is to practice, practice, practice. Only until these first 2 needs have been met will true presence come to the surface." A great example of this is Amanda Palmer.
But I'm gonna ask for help because I saw it work on the street. So I fought my way off my label, and for my next project with my new band, the Grand Theft Orchestra, I turned to crowdfunding. And I fell into those thousands of connections that I'd made, and I asked my crowd to catch me. And the goal was $100,000. My fans backed me at nearly 1.2 million, which was the biggest music crowdfunding project to date. And you can see how many people it is. It's about 25,000 people. And the media asked, "Amanda, the music business is tanking and you encourage piracy. How did you make all these people pay for music?" And the real answer is, I didn't make them. I asked them.
Amanda Palmer has amazing passion because she's experienced it in her day-to-day life and on the streets. And she's confident because she's practiced every opportunity she's gotten to. And because of those 2 things, her presence really comes to life on stage. Only after you've understood the 3 Ps, passion, practice, and presence, can you move on to the more technical side of presentations, verbal delivery.
For our second topic, we have the 4 elements of verbal delivery. Match the pace of your verbal delivery with your natural conversation style. For the 4 elements, we have rate/pace, which is the speed at which you speak at. We have volume, which is the loud or softness of your voice. We also have pitch, which is higher and low inflections. And we also have pauses. Short pauses or long pauses to punch in keywords. The ideal rate of public speaking, studies show that 150 to 160 words is the ideal rate for audiobooks. Part of the reason why audiobooks start at a lower pace level is because viewers can actually see the lips moving or facial expressions from who's ever speaking. Tony Robbins is a good example of pace and speaking.
Number 6, you gotta grow. With what you grow, you have to contribute, because everything in the universe is either growing or dying. Everything in the universe is contributing or it's eliminated by evolution, if nothing else. Or made for.
Some things you may have noticed from his presentation is there's actually a stage on there. He's not really on it because he likes to interact with his audience. And he uses his hands a lot to interact more with his audience and kind of does more of a, kind of gets in your face, kind of telling you what he's talking about just so you guys don't fall asleep and aware of what's going on. Another example of public speaking is Dr. Gilboa Taylor. She does her words in about 2,700 words per presentation. And the normal range for a presentation is about 3,000 words. Part of the reason why her presentation falls shortly underneath that is because she builds in slow. She builds long pauses to build dramatic impact that pretty much fills in the time for her audience. On Talk Like TED, page 82, on my panel states, if you don't have the rate of time, nothing else matters. Sorry. While the pace of verbal delivery is important, it wouldn't impact your listeners as much if you didn't match it, if your body language didn't match what you were saying. So let's dive into these types of body languages that help enhance your communication skills during presentation.
Next, I'll be talking about positive body language because it makes a big difference when giving your presentations. The big difference is hand gestures. When you move your hands all over the place, it interacts with your audience even though it may not seem like it, and it just improves your presentation. Using gestures actually frees up your mental capacity when giving your presentation, and therefore it makes giving your presentation much easier and simple. And also, Ernesto Ciroli, which will be viewing a TED Talk on the next slide, you'll see that he doesn't even have slides behind him because his hand gestures moving all over the place during his presentation paints his words that he's talking about for him.
When the tomatoes were nice and ripe and red, overnight some 200 hippos came out from the river and they ate everything. And we said to the Zambians, "My God, the hippos!" And the Zambia said, "Yes, that's why we have no agriculture here." "Why didn't you tell us?" "You never asked." "I thought it was only us Italians."
You can see in his presentation that he is moving his hands and he never stops moving them. He never puts his hands in his pockets. Earlier in the TED Talk, he tries putting his hands in his pockets and his hands are back out of his pockets in seconds because he can't keep them in there because he just likes moving his hands. He has his audience laughing at him, which is helping them stay tuned, and they're enjoying his presentation because of all the laughs and jokes that he's causing. Use your body the right way. Using hand gestures sometimes is positive, but sometimes you can make them negative. You need to use hand movements that are openly projected outward, broad, not just in this little bubble. And you need to have forward-leaning body positions instead of just sitting back and relaxing and talking to your audience. And this proves to enhance your presentation and the effectiveness that it is giving. Like I said, not all body language is positive, and there's actually such thing as negative body language when giving your presentation.
So our fourth main point that we'll be talking about today is negative body language. There are 3 common problems that can negatively impact your presentation by distracting the audience. We're also going to go over 3 easy solutions. So these are the 3 common body language problems. The first is fidgeting, tapping, or jingling. The second one is standing rigidly in place. The third one is keeping your hands in your pockets. As you can see, it's very distracting, and these 3 problems serve no real purpose other than to make the presenter look uncertain unprepared, uninterested, uncommitted, all of which are bad qualities to have during conversations or presentations. So let's go over the solutions. The solution to problem number 1 of fidgeting, tapping, and jingling is to move with purpose. A helpful tip is to videotape yourself and play back the video. Watch for any unnecessary movements and gestures, such as rubbing your nose, tapping your fingers, or jingling coins in your pockets. Watching yourself makes you much more aware of your actions when you have to present in public. Next, the solution to problem number 2 of standing rigidly in place is to walk, move, and work the room. And once again, videotape yourself so you can understand what it looks like, but walk out of the frame once in a while, because if you stay within the video camera frame for too long, you can actually appear too rigid, and this takes away from your presentation. And finally, the solution to problem number 3 of having your hands in your pocket is to take your hands out of your pockets. It's easy and it's easy to remember. So videotape yourself again so you can understand if your hands do make their ways into your pockets, you can fix it, correct it before you present. Using positive body language, such as gestures, mentioned by Abigail in point number 3, can help keep your hands involved while also engaging the audience. Notice that one thing all 3 solutions had in common was to videotape yourself. On page 102 of Talk Like TED, Carmen Gallo states that simply seeing yourself in action makes you more conscious of how you come across, making you better equipped to eliminate useless movements and gestures. So now that we have gone over negative body language and how to fix it, let's review everything we've gone over so far and see how much you remember.
As I said before, the 3 Ps, passion, practice, and presence, are all vital in order to make effective use of your presentations.
You also stated rate/pace of the speech is the most important.
On top of that, I talked about using positive body language to enhance your presentation and the effectiveness of it.
But practice avoiding negative body language because it can actually distract your audience and ruin your presentation.
Now it's your turn. What do the 3 Ps stand for?
Passion, present, and practice.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, here you
Oh, nice.
Alright, for the next question, there are 4 elements of verbal delivery: rate/pace, volume, pitch, and pauses. What is the most important? If anybody
Anyone know?
remembers.
Rate/pace.
Yep. Here's that. Okay, for the next question, why are audiobooks recorded at a slower pace level?
Yeah.
So they have a pause so the listener can imagine their facial expressions and
Yep. So they can see your facial expressions and your eyebrow movement. See what he's talking about. What is positive body language called? It's the easiest one. Anyone know? Gestures. I talked about it. Using hand gestures. And then the final question.
What can you do to fix negative body language? And if you need a hint, it's the common solution to all 3 problems.
videotape yourself.
Yes.
You guys are good.
This may seem like a lot of information to take in at once, but remember, no one is perfect. We all make mistakes, and we all need to practice in order to appear natural when conversing or presenting.
There's a helpful quote by Carmen Gallo on page 107 of Talk Like TED, where he states, "Your delivery and gestures, mastered through hours and hours of practice, will enhance your overall message, but without passion and practice, your presence will be severely diminished."
Continuing the quote on page 82 on Talk Like TED by Carmen Gallo says, "Your strength as a speaker comes from the inside."
This may seem like a lot of information to take at once because there are many tips to improve your conversational style presentation, but you have to really believe in yourself to see the effects of these changes. So what are you waiting for? You need to have confidence in yourself. This will help you turn an average presentation into a top-notch presentation that will engage the audience. So do you guys have any questions to further help you guys with your presentations?
No, great.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
All right, are all the cameras ready? Hello, so today we're going to talk about the thing you just cannot ignore in a presentation.
All right, let's talk money. Here we have a $50 bill. Who here would like this $50 bill? Who is appealed by this $50 bill? Yes, okay, now what if I were to crunch up this $50 bill? Who would still want it? What if I were to stomp on it? Would you still want it? Now, what if Magnus were to eat this $50 bill? Who would still want it? Exactly. Now, the point of this little demonstration is one that, we can spit that out. The point of this demonstration that my psychology professor used was to show that like the things you go through, trials, hard times, it doesn't affect your value and your worth. Now, my psychology professor could have said just that, and the point would have gotten across, but this was more memorable. Obviously, I remembered it and I used it in a further presentation. And so those are things that you can do in presenting that make things memorable.
So let's talk about who we are. So my name is Magnus Fulton. I'm a high school student at West Valley High School. I'm a junior and I'm also a running start student. And anyways, I'm really excited about teaching you guys all the importance of novelty in a presentation, because when I was down at the high school, I had a professor who taught an environmental science class. He taught a fascinating subject, but he did the same thing every day. And it was completely predictable, and after a while it just all started to run together. I want to teach you how to make your presentations memorable.
I'm Riley Gowen, and I'm also a junior at SELA. I'm doing running starts, and kind of the same thing when professors or presenters or just teachers make things memorable. It makes everything that you're learning about more impactful.
And my name's Anna Hole. I am a junior at Eisenhower. And I don't really know why we're doing this slide, but we are, so.
My name is Eli, and I'm a junior at West Valley High School. And I think that this is important for people to know because it helps you get better grades, because the teachers remember your slides and your presentations. It's important.
It's not, I am clicking.
There we go. Oh.
My name is Luke, and I'm also a junior at West Valley High School. And today we're going to be presenting Chapter 4 from Talk Like Ted, Teach Me Something New. The best presenters all know that there is one thing that you can never ignore, and that one thing is novelty. So today, next slide. Today, we're going to teach you how to become a better, more memorable public speaker by teaching you how to captivate your audience using new ideas and fresh perspectives.
So within our 3 main points, first we're going to look at Robert Ballard, and he's going to kind of describe to us what it feels like to have a jaw-dropping moment. And then second, we're going to look at Hans Rosling, and he is going to give us a demonstration of packaging old information in a new way. And then lastly, we're going to look at, if the next slide will come up, James Cameron, and he was the director of the Titanic, and he is going to explain to us why we have a drive for curiosity. And additionally, Martha Burns will also be kind of giving the scientific background for that.
Next we have jaw-dropping moments. Like Anna was saying, this is Martha Burns, and she gave a TED Talk about presenters that you remember best. And I don't remember, we did
the teachers that you remember the best are the ones that took the education and made it that, wow, is that interesting? I didn't know that. That's really cool.
Yes, so like Martha Burns was talking about, and how kind of mentioned in that $50 bill demonstration, when your presenters present information in a new way or a different way or a more exciting way, you remember it because it's different, it's exciting, and it's a way that people have not presented it before. So that is something taken away from that clip.
Robert Ballard here makes a great example of that. He is an oceanic explorer, and throughout his presentation, he just drops like jaw-dropping moment after jaw-dropping moment. He starts with something that you would think would be really boring, comparing the budget between organizations, and really makes it a wow moment by showing just the difference of scale between, what's spent on ocean exploration versus space travel. And then he also will talk about sort of the different life you can see on the bottom of the ocean, and just other like wow moments, like when he describes how he went to the moon and played golf before visiting the largest feature on our planet. But I think he really summarizes the sort of value and importance of having these jaw-dropping moments in presentations when he says this.
We watch. This is what we watch. This is a young lady not watching a football game, not watching a basketball game, watching exploration live from thousands of miles away, and it's just dawning on her what she's seen. And when you get a jaw drop, you can inform. You can put so much information into that mind, it's in full reset mode.
When you get a jaw drop, you can inform. So I guess the question for you is, in your next presentation, how will you make it novel? How will you make it attention-getting? How will you make it new and fresh? If you can do that, your audience can't help but pay attention to you.
So, are you a remarkable person? Well, in order to answer that question, we must first know what remarkable means. So here is a short clip from one of Seth Godin's TED Talks.
And remarkable is a really cool word, because we think it just means neat, but it also means worth making a remark about.
Each of us is different, and we all have unique stories to share, and that in itself is worth making a remark about. However, in a world where there are too many choices with too little time, it is very easy to go unnoticed. Your audience will not pay attention if you deliver the same information in the same boring way as everyone else. But by giving your listeners a new spin on your content, in other words, making it remarkable, your audience will be much more receptive to what you have to say. But what if there are people in your audience who have already heard what you're talking about? Well, in that case, there's always something new or something different that you can incorporate into your message to make it stand out to them. You'll be able to grab their attention if you can teach them just one thing new that they didn't know before. As neuroscientist Gregory Burns put it, the brain must be provided with something new, with something different that it has never before processed to force it out of predictable perceptions. In other words, people remember the unexpected. So do whatever it takes to jolt your audience out of their preconceived notions and give them a new way of looking at the world.
Okay, so when you go to a restaurant and you order a drink, you probably normally get a normal straw with it, right? But what if you got a fun straw? You'd be happy with that, right? Because it's different and new. That was the point of our last main point, that it needs to be, that what you need to do, or what is done has to be done in a different way so that people will remember what has been done. And that takes us into our next point, a new perspective. So the first person we're going to talk about in our next main point is Hans Rosling. Yep.
Now, what has happened since 1960?
Go back. Sorry. So Hans Rosling is a famous statistician. So basically, he's really good at organizing information and numbers and stuff. But the thing with Hans Rosling is he does it in a different way than most people. Most people use bar graphs or line graphs or pie charts, but he finds ways to put the most information that you possibly can on one graph. So we see an example of it here in this TED Talk.
Now, what has happened since 1962? We want to see the change. Are the students right? It's still two types of countries? Or have these developing countries got smaller families and they live here? Or have they got longer lives and live up there? Let's see, we stop the world. And this is all UN statistic that has been available. Here we go. Can you see there? It's China, they're moving against better health, they're improving there. All the green Latin American countries, they are moving towards smaller families. The yellow ones here are the Arabic countries and they get larger families, but longer lives but not larger families. The Africans are the green down here, they still remain here. This is India. Indonesia is moving on pretty fast. And in the 80s here.
So as you can see in this presentation, he had a ton of information in one little chart. So he had lifespan versus fertility rates with the population size of the country all in one chart. And another thing that was important about this is he made it interesting to his audience. He captivated them by getting them engaged in what was going on, by pointing out what was happening as everything moved around. So what I want you to take away from this is you have to show them a different way of doing things so that they will be interested in what you're showing.
Seth Godin here shows that this idea of making something new from a new perspective or something completely new is not just applicable to giving a presentation, but it's also applicable to the market too. You know, earlier on in some of his presentations, he talks about this concept that he calls the purple cow analogy, which is, you know, you see it, you're driving down the road, you see a cow, whatever, cool, it's a cow. But if you see a purple cow, now that's pretty attention getting, you're going to make a remark about that. And he has a very similar thing that he wants to make here too, that if you are able to show something from a new perspective, that idea, that product, if you will succeed in that marketplace of ideas, if you will. Here's what he has to say.
And all of these products succeeded because someone figured out how to touch people in a way that they weren't expecting, in a way they didn't necessarily want, with an ad over and over and over again until they bought it.
So, well, are your ideas that way? Are they unexpected? Do they reach people in a way that they aren't expecting? There you go.
So, let's solve a problem. This is the way that people normally organize their information. It's bottled in a way that is hard to get the information out. Could anybody in here tell me how much water is in this bottle? Yeah? How much do you think is in this bottle?
24 ounces.
No, you're wrong. I don't even think this holds 24 ounces. But the point is, you can't tell because it's bottled in a way that's hard to get information out. So, if I were to pour the water, pour the water into this bottle, then would you be able to tell me how much water is in here? Turn it this way.
Maybe not from this one.
Oh, yeah, good point. Well, there's about 16 ounces in here. I probably should have made that more clear. But anyways, the reason that this is important is because it's bottled in a way so you can tell what I'm trying to get to you. So, you have anything to say about this? Okay. Yeah, you gotta bottle it differently so they understand what you're saying.
Okay, so for our next point, the drive for curiosity, we're going to look at James Cameron, and he, like I said earlier, he's the director of the Titanic, and he takes a moment and is like, why am I doing this? Why am I making this movie? Why am I putting so much effort into it? And so in this clip, it's a really good, he explains it really well on why he does what he does.
I had to, at a certain point, say, what am I doing out here? Why am I doing this? What do I get out of it? We don't make money at these damn shows. You know, we barely break even. There's no fame in it. People sort of think I went away between Titanic and Avatar and was buffing my nails someplace, you know, sitting at the beach. Made all these films, made all these documentary films that, you know, for a very limited audience. So no fame, no glory, no money. What are you doing? You're doing it for the task itself, for the challenge. And the ocean is the most challenging environment there is, for the thrill of discovery, and for that strange bond that happens when a small group of people form a tightly knit team, because we would do these things with 10, 12 people working for years at a time.
So when he refers to the ocean as one of the most dangerous environments to work with, he's talking about he actually made it one of his goals to dive down to the Atlantic and take a shot or like a scene of the Titanic to put into the movie to captivate his audience. And what he is saying here is that it's not always about the physical gain that you get from it, like the money, but the lessons that you learn along the way and like the experiences that he had in doing that.
Yes. So next up we have Ben Saunders, and he was an Arctic explorer, and he gave a TED Talk on why we leave the house.
To me, therefore, that the doing, to try to experience, to engage, to endeavour, rather than to watch and to wander, that's where the real meat of life is to be found, the juice that we can suck out of our hours and days.
Right, so when he's talking about this, he's basically making the point that our own experiences, the journey that we are all on, called life, it is more impactful than telling about other people's stories because it's personal to us and we have firsthand experience. If I were to hike to the top of, Mount Rainier or something, I would be able to tell more captivating and memorable stories because I actually did it. Now, if I were to talk about Magnus doing it, it could still be cool and impactful, but I wouldn't have the same effect on my audience because I'm not telling it from firsthand experience. So that's kind of what Ben Saunders is trying to get across here.
And then our last TED Talk speaker is Martha Burns, and she's going to give kind of the scientific reasoning why we have our drive for curiosity and what fulfills that. So, she says learning about new things is exciting, and the dopamine helps the brain retain the new information. And she uses the phrase, dopamine is the save button of the brain. And so in this slide here, it's in her TED Talk, she's basically explaining the different behavioral releases that we have, and the main one she focuses on is dopamine. And so when we have that drive for curiosity or to do different things, we get a release of dopamine, which kind of satisfies that drive for curiosity. So that's kind of, she answers the why to the question, why do we do what we do?
In conclusion, there are three main things we want you to take away from this presentation. First, how can you make your presentations more jaw-dropping? We would take the Robert Ballard approach and just do jaw-drop after jaw-drop to really keep the audience's attention, show them things they've never seen before, take them to places they've never been. We would take them to new places and give them new perspectives like Hans Rosling, who'd used decades-old data but presented it in a way that nobody had ever seen before, almost narrating it like he was watching a sports game, and helped change people's worldviews? Or will you satisfy people's innate drive for curiosity, because people are naturally curious people? One of Martha Burns' earlier comments was that to be curious is human, so if you can use that in your presentation, you will be unforgettable. People will be unable to ignore you.
So our first question is, what is the one thing your audience can't ignore in the presentation?
A jaw-dropping moment.
Not new information.
It's close though.
Yeah.
Yeah, jaw-dropping moments can be pretty novel.
Our next question is, according to Dr. Martha Burns, people are blank to learning. Someone remember that? Any takers?
Yes.
All right, the answer is addicted
Addicted.
to learning.
The next question, asked about Hans Rosling. So people are used to seeing statistics in a presentation. How did Hans Rosling flip this on its head? Yeah.
Presented it in a new fashion.
Yep. That's exactly what he did. He presented it in a different way to make people.
Why did I eat a $50 bill? Yes.
To show that it doesn't lose its word.
Yep. Then we go through things. Yeah, so it was to make a point. Yeah. All right, final question.
In his own words, how did Seth Godin define the word remarkable?
To make your point worthy of being
Yes.
spoke about?
Yeah, worth making a remark about.
Otherwise it'd be a remark.
Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you.